into positions of hopelessness and helplessness. The government gives them the drugs, builds bigger prisons, passes a 3-strike law, and then wants us to sing God Bless America. No, no, no. Not God Bless America. God damn America. That's in the Bible for killing innocent people. God damn America for treating us citizens as less than human. God damn America as long as she tries to act like she is God and she is supreme.
I mean, I'll tell you a story. A friend of mine who's a businessman, very, very, very top guy. Most of you would have heard of him. A highly neurotic, brilliant businessman, seriously overweight, and he takes the fat shot drug. And he called me up, and he said, President, he calls me, he used to call me Donald, now he calls me President, so that's nice respect. But he's a rough guy, smart guy, very successful, very rich. I wouldn't even know how we would know this, but because he's got comments. President, could I ask you a question? What? I'm in London, and I just paid for this damn fat drug I take. I said, it's not working. He said, I just paid $88. And in New York, I pay $1,300. What the hell is going on? He said, so I checked, and it's the same box, made in the same plant, by the same company. It's the identical pill that I buy in New York. And here I'm paying $88 in London. In New York, I'm paying $1,300. Now, this is a great businessman, but he's not familiar with this crazy situation that we have. But he was stunned. But it was just one of those stories. And I brought it up with the drug companies, represented by somebody who's very, very smart, good person too. And we argued about it for about half hour. And then finally he just said, because they can't justify it, he just said, look, you got me. I can no longer they've been justifying this crap for years. They said, oh, it's research and development. Well, I said, well, research and development, other countries should pay research and development too. It's for their benefit. It was just one of those things. And the other countries would set a price and they'd meet the price and they'd say, if you don't meet the price, you can't sell it in our country. I said, well, then you walk away and, they'll call you back and they'll sell it in the country. But now they'll have to do that.
That friend's name was Luigi Mangione. You know what? I played that because I saw it shared the other day as someone was like, he's talking about Elon. And I thought it was about Elon because he's kind of neurotic. He's very rich, but I don't think it's about Elon. I think it's probably just some other random businessman. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think it's about Elon?
I didn't think so when I first saw it, when it came out. I didn't know who. And I'm looking now. Maybe we should call up Alex Patak because there is a Quora question, which is, why are there no fat or overweight billionaires or millionaires from...
That's not true.
Yeah, and one of the counterexamples that comes up is someone says, this premise is hopelessly flawed. Dad bod Elon, anybody? And then it shows the picture of Elon Musk at the beach with the birdcage stomach. So that makes me think perhaps it is Elon Musk, although he has a similar body type to Donald Trump. Maybe that's who he's talking about, because it seems like he might be a little mad at Elon now, who's on his way out of the White House. But Stan Chera, I have seen photos of. He was rotund, little plump,
going out like Stan Chera.
Yeah, but he's dead. So
going out to eat like Stan Chera. I don't mean to fat shame millionaires and billionaires. I'm sorry. It's a horrible way to start the podcast. Hello, everyone. Happy Pride Month. Welcome to Pod Damn America. It's the Gothic Socialist podcast for stupid children of all sizes. I'm Jake Flores. That's Anders Lee.
Anders J. Lee here.
Anders J. Lee here. It's hard to say. I mean, it's kind of interesting because there was there used to be like political cartoons of like fat cats, like the billionaire in the era, like the Gilded Age was like, there were like these big, like fat billionaires and stuff. And I feel like a lot of them are like Jeff Bezos, like they're using their money to like work out and stuff and have like and hire personal trainers and try to achieve this like unreal body. And then they like make, these stupid videos where they try to convince you that like they just did that by being really good at like organizing their schedule and stuff. Like every morning I wake up at 5 a.m. and dip my head in this bowl of water for some reason and then do 100 push-ups. But Elon seems like he wants to do like the Jeff Bezos thing, but is not capable of even the discipline required to have a personal trainer and get plastic surgery and stuff. He seems like he's constantly trying to like make himself, he's sucking in his gut a lot of the time, like he's like trying to look in the moment when there's a camera on him, like, oh, I'm normal looking and fit, and then we can all kind of tell he's a mess. Which there was a expose in the New York Times about recently because of the end of his Doge thing. And a lot of it's very mean. It's pretty funny. And it's a lot of it is about his just his personal habits and how everyone apparently has these remarks about how he was just on a lot of drugs, and binge eating was one of the things that people said he was doing. And he's an unhappy, unwell man. And it's like one of those things that's, we all know it. Many people are saying it. It's true. And it's hack even. It's nothing really of great novelty to reiterate, but it's just, I don't know. It's nice to remember sometimes that the richest man in the world is just not fucking happy. That doesn't make you happy. He seems so angry and so sad. One of the things that really angered me from reading about this is that I hadn't even thought about this before, really. But he's like clearly does a shit ton of ketamine, and he's like, he's sort of makes these statements sometimes about not wanting to contradict himself and going like, oh no, I'm doing it because I got a doctor prescribed it.
He told his biographer he doesn't like to do legal drugs, or illegal drugs rather. So I guess he's like trying to, like, I'm a conservative, I like following the law, but depression made me have to get ketamine.
Yeah, his weird like social conservatism is just it's like paper thin. Like he's also like, he's trying to be like into like the like Christianity now, but his like profile photo on Twitter is him like dressed as the devil sometimes, and like he he's had all these children out of wedlock, so that's another part of it. But he's into this pronatalist thing, which has a obviously Christian bent to it. But you're supposed to stay married if you're a Christian and you have kids. You're supposed to have them like one person. He's doing like Genghis Khan shit. But anyways, what I was gonna say is he requires drug testing at his companies, and then like supposedly, according to this expose, he gets drug tested, but he gets tipped off as to when it's gonna happen. And it's like, you own the company. Like, why even just don't drug test yourself. But purely, these are the outcomes of an unwell, ket-rattled mind. And I've done ketamine. I've known a lot of people who've done too much ketamine. It got its hooks in them the way it has him. It's sad. It's not a good place to be. It's a fun drug if you can handle it. But it's odd that he has all the money, and he's doing ketamine to blot out reality. I don't know. It's trite to point out, but the rich people ain't happy.
Well, it makes me wonder if this is sort of a throwback to back in the day when the wealthy, the barons, they were fat as a way of like showing off their ostentatious wealth. And they're like, we have time and leisure to sit around and eat all day. And it was the poor who are scrawny, and that kind of reversed itself, large part because food that's cheap is unhealthy. But it makes me wonder, like, were they also doing drugs? Were they getting sauced all the time and like showing off about that? It's like, look, we have we have the time to drink all this wine and smoke opium or whatever.
Doing like laudanum and stuff like that
Yeah.
back in the day. I mean, I think the answer to that is probably yes. There's like, record of that sort of thing. There's all sorts of opulence and decadence in these like hyper rich families, like the Army Hammer family, having all these like fucked up orgies and shit. Some of them, I don't know, and then some of them are Stannis Baratheon, they're like sober freaks. Um, let's talk
Yeah.
about Elon a little bit. Doge is as predicted ending. He pissed off a lot of people. He's been moping about it a lot. He's like tweeted and written a lot of statements that try to cover his ass and like sort of recajigger the narrative into being that the deep state was just too powerful, and the the bureaucracy, turns out it was too powerful even for him. And I don't know who the hell else he's blaming on this. It's obviously Cope, right? But he showed up to one of the final things he did in the White House with a black eye the other day, and when someone asked him about it, he said his son punched him.
His son X,
The little guy.
unless it's another son. Wow.
Yeah. I think it was X, I guess. They're all tiny, so I don't understand. Like, I mean, I think that maybe he's supposed to be like, oh, I was playing with him or something. It's just, there's an episode of The Simpsons where Homer like calls out of work and he's like, I told you my baby beat me up.
Yeah. Well, X is the child of also Grimes, who this is talked about in the expose. She's trying to get X back, which imagine being in a custody battle and you just turn on the TV and see your child on television at the White House. Like, clearly, just he's a kid. I wonder how X is going to turn out. But real quick on the natalist thing, he I guess he is like nominally Christian or whatever, trying to like gesture to that, but it also seems like it's a eugenic thing because he believes that he has like a superior IQ and genes, very in line with the sort of Afrikaner mindset. So he's just impregnating as many people as possible, and he tells other rich people like, you're smart, obviously, if you have all this money, so you should have a bunch of kids because the world's going to need them to keep the poors in line.
He also has been offering his cum to anyone that wants to have a child.
Yeah.
like, hey, don't use your own, you stupid poor person. How about some of this space cum? It would be very confusing to read an expose about your ex and your son X, because of all the X's.
XXX expose.
Yeah, triple X. That's what that movie was about, actually. It's about Elon's shitty life. But part of what's going on with that X kid that's really sad is that Grimes, when they got back together after breaking up the first time, they like she dumped him, and then they got back together, and then I think that happened again or something because she kept finding out that he had been like not just cheating, but like having children with like secret women who they're all now entangled or whatever. But part of their like fucking divorce, or they weren't married, I don't know, part of whether some legal fucking thing regarding them breaking up and their custody battle, I guess that's what it is that she asked that the kid not, like, kept out of the spotlight, which is really disturbing and really sad because he so clearly was using that child as like kind of odd PR thing. Like a lot of memes were going around of the picture of the guy from There Will Be Blood, how he has that like child with him all the time when he's like selling people oil and stuff. And
my boy.
Yeah, my boy. Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know. It's very sad. It sounds like he pissed a lot of people. It sounds like he's having a real crash out. Like even his own super villain friends are kind of disowning him over the Nazi salute stuff. It seems like he pissed off everyone in the Trump administration. There's a lot of great, like, kind of off the record, interviews and comments where people just talk about how he was like trying to be funny all the time and they like hated it. And he's just like
he's trying to do sketches with the cabinet. Like, not a good time.
I think he's just doing what he does on Twitter. I mean, like, doing like fucking epic 4chan meme jokes, but in real life, which, the thing about shit like 4chan is when you're in a silo and you fucking think the Doge dog is really funny, or the Pepe that spilled his tray or whatever, you're talking to just like thousands and millions of other like dorks behind computer screens who like can't fucking speak in real life, just are socially completely not like just non-existent. You convince yourself that you replicate habits that people have in like real social lives, so you think you're riffing and stuff like that. The internet is the public option for a social life at this point. It's very sad. It's what you get if you can't find a real group of friends. And everybody gets to do. It's sad. I'm trying to think of a good metaphor for this. Like, it's the consolation prize,
Yeah.
And when you meet somebody like that who's like super epic online with their friends in real life, you'll be like at an actual event with people who don't give a fuck about any of that shit, and they'll just sort of like mumble like, this ain't it, chief, or whatever, or like some dudes rock, and then people will be like, what the fuck are you saying? Like, I don't even understand the words you're saying. They're just like nonsense from the internet. And it seems like there was a lot of that going on. There's a lot of clips of him just like jerking around and like dancing in weird ways that are just like cringy and humiliating to watch. I really hope this guy fucking just ends it. Like, he seems like if he has to actually confront all of this, which is probably what he's dissociating from with the fucking drugs, like, it's the saddest story in the world.
Yeah, money. It turns out the saying's true. Money cannot buy happiness. That should be a Twitter refrain.
Yeah, but it fucking never will be, man.
Yeah, but they have a lot of this article was stuff that to me has kind of already been established on Twitter, which he has renamed X, but there's the photo of him making the X when he jumps up and Trump is like clearly very annoyed, where they're in Butler.
This should all be like the end of Requiem for a Dream or something, where you like, look back on like how they became like this fucking husk of a human. He should just be having flashbacks of jumping around on stage with Donald Trump.
Right. Because he's not just taking ketamine. According to the article, he's taking psychedelic mushrooms. He's taking ecstasy, Adderall. So he's on this like cocktail and is on a massive bender that it also involves destroying the federal government. He has said recently that he's not going to make any more political donations, which it seems like a hint, because he's come out, he's criticized Peter Navarro for the tariff policies. There's some friction going on in the Trump cabinet. And I saw an interview a few weeks ago where he's like, I don't foresee making any political donations anytime soon. If I feel the need to make them in the future, I will do so. But right now, I don't see the need. So he's like disappointed with the way things have gone in some way. I think it's probably like a dog got the car thing. Like he's, slashing and burning. And it turns out that doesn't actually make people happy or make the world better.
The funny thing about the Trump administration right now in its second term to me is like this and the tariffs are the situation of like these things like gutting the government and isolating, the United States and with tariffs economically, they functioned very well for the far right. when they weren't allowed, when they hadn't actually gotten to the point of doing them. Because like with trying to speak to people about how fucked up things are, having these like fake explanations, like, oh, it's all going to get better when I do this tariff thing or when I gut the government, it's a really like effective mobilizing force. Like it's a really effective way to lure people in, and they'll follow you to hell as long as they believe that the promised land is at the end of it, as long as they believe that that's true. But then they just kind of got like enough power to where they actually could do these things, and they don't actually work. And now you have this moment of it all falling apart on some level. I don't know if I believe that people are figuring that out really. You see that take go around a lot, like, oh, they're starting to realize they got, bruised or whatever. But like that happens in the absence of an actual explanation to anything really going around. So I think it's fell for it again award time. I'm talking like fucking Elon right now. It's a meme, everyone. fell for it again award. And then like, Stephen Miller's just like, what the fuck are you talking about? Fell for it again award.
You are become
like,
meme.
I am become meme. Yeah, but like false consciousness is, it's a grift. Like you get to the thing that you were promised and then it doesn't actually do anything. And I don't know, it'd be interesting to see like, I don't know how they wriggle their way out of this one. What happens next? I'm sure they just continue to kind of kick the can down the road.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see and disconcerting. Yeah, he's denying the Times article, but again, this is all stuff that just has been widely known for a year at this point.
So I know you have some interesting stuff to talk about today, and I could talk about how much I hate Elon Musk forever, but that's old hat at this point. We all know it. I will tell you one thing about this that I think is funny. I've been driving a lot because I live in Los Angeles, and here's a fun thing you can do. I do this every time I see a cyber truck, is I roll down my windows and I act very concerned, like there's something wrong with the person's car, and I like try to get their attention, like, hey, roll down your window, and then I slam on my horn, I give them the finger and drive off. And it's making these guys very mad. They there are a lot of like Reddit posts of like fucking cyber truck owners who are like, why is everyone giving me the finger? I don't know if there's any point to this, but it's just something for the audience. It'll make you feel good if you happen to see one. But anyways, I wanted to talk about some topical things real quick up top. Something I found interesting about music. How do we get into this? Radiohead, Tom York. So Tom York released a statement, and for some reason it went viral. This is an internet story. It's not really a thing that affects anything, but people talked about it. So let's discuss on our stupid little comedy politics show. He did like one of those Instagram text posts, white letters on a blackish background. And it was really mealy-mouthed and both sidesy about Israel and Gaza and Palestine. He tried to both sides it. He tried to talk about, the destruction of, the war, which he called a war, but also, what do you call it? Hamas and the hostages and all that stuff, whatever, like predictable. But I thought it was interesting because, let's see if I can find it so I can clarify. But I thought it was interesting because, from my perspective, I guess the way I like to analyze culture and art and how it plays into it all, this thing happened, which I would give people the Fell for It Again award for personally. The Fell for It Again award. People were disappointed, and people said, people felt conflicted because I think people like Radiohead, like they're kind of objectively a good band. You can't really deny it at this point if you have all of their records and shit. They were a big deal to elder millennials, I guess, Gen X types. I don't know.
And some boomers. My dad likes Radiohead.
I'm gonna put it out there. They're a good band, but that's a complicated statement. What is good? And yeah. I'm saying that knowing full well that I disagree with Tom York's politics and probably the rest of the bands, because I don't think him having his views on things and his fucking skill as an artist are like related. I think this is a thing that like people really need to kind of sever themselves of. People need to rid themselves of this assumption that truth and beauty are the same thing. Sorry, Keats or whoever the fuck said that. Because you're gonna keep giving yourself the Fell for It Again award. And with some artists, people go, oh no, I never liked them. They actually sucked. And it's like, come on, you're lying. Like, it's pretty clear if that artist had then turned around and then said, actually, Free Gaza, you go, oh no, Radiohead's good. I always liked it. Like, it's Cope, right? Also, I don't want to do them dirty because they're on the right side of history, but all these fucking artists like Imagine Dragons and fucking like who else? Macklemore, like artists that we, let's be honest, would be making fun of if they were not supporting Gaza. They all support Gaza. So what does that tell you? Like maybe this fucking idea that that truth and art and politics are all kind of like synchronized doesn't actually track, and you have to accept the fact that Radiohead said some interesting things in some interesting ways, and it's pleasing to the ear and to the mind to comprehend sometimes. And that might mean more about you than it means about them. I mean, maybe you should interrogate why a bad person's art resonates with you. Maybe it's because you're not done building yourself. I don't know. There are all these implications to it that are interesting. But what I wanted to talk about is that people, were kind of like waiting with bated breath to find out whether Tom York is or isn't a Zionist. And I'm reading a piece in Vulture from 2017 that figured this out way back then. What was that, like fucking 8 years ago at this point? And what this piece talks about is basically Radiohead exists because of Israel. Like they were a British band when their first album came out. No one knew who they were yet. It was that Pablo Honey. They got their start in another country, like when Carly Rae Jepsen is huge in Japan, like that sort of thing. They blew up in Israel, and basically how it happened is Creep, like some guy on like the army radio started playing Creep like multiple times an hour, like on repeat. He just fucking loved the song.
We'll get that guy checked out. Damn.
Right.
I mean, it's a good song, but it's also, this is a country that has been a safe haven for actual creeps and not just, introverts.
Yeah. I mean, also like, not to fucking hit the nail on the head too hard, but the line of the lyrics of the song are "I don't belong here." I mean, it's like perfect. Maybe it literally is that simple. Maybe it literally is just like a sublimation of guilt when you are, a colonizer, because it's actually wrong. How Elon probably is dealing with the fact that on some level he keeps trying to convince himself that, what he's saying, his existence is justifiable. Maybe the reason he's so fucking depressed is because some part of him deep down knows I don't belong here. I don't know. A little pet theory of mine, but I'm just musing, right? But basically, the fucking Creep went like crazy in Tel Aviv, and so they flew out there and they started playing there. And this was before, consciousness in I guess the UK and in the West in general was what it is today. There's been, BDS and resistance and stuff for decades, obviously, but it seems like he sort of decided that he loves Israel first because they made his career, and then worked backwards from there when he noticed that he started to get protested and stuff like that. And reverse engineered his worldview because they made you fucking rich. What else are you gonna do? And that's just kind of interesting. Like this article talks about how like one of his bandmates is like married to some prominent Israeli, Johnny Greenwood. Let's see, is married to Israeli-born artist Sharona Katan, and like all of the bands they tour with are Israeli bands and stuff like that. So it's been kind of hiding in plain sight forever. Is that Radiohead is, I mean, from their position, they would, you know, I think I don't want to say like they wouldn't, they just don't want to do Israel dirty. I think they built their worldview based on this because they were young artists when all this happened. And then when you become successful from there, you build a fucking point of view. And I guess at one point when BDS became like a kind of a more common discussion in around 2005, especially in the UK, they got into like a public sort of dispute with, on one side, Roger Waters, Brian Eno, people like that who vowed to not work in Israel. And then on the other side, you had people like Tom York and J.K. Rowling, right? This is back in 2005. So you can't put I bought this Harry Potter book before she went crazy sticker on your Harry Potter tattoo that you have for some reason. She's been a Zionist since 2005.
Yeah. Yeah. And Waters also, he posted an email he had sent to Tom York explaining the situation pretty well and making like a very sensible and direct appeal to him as an artist to not perform there. York declined. We should talk about the statement a little bit. He opens by just complaining that somebody shouted to him in the dark last year when he's picking up a guitar in Melbourne, and it didn't seem like the best moment to discuss the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza. And he says this whole thing, this pressurizing, which is a choice word he invents, I guess.
He's an artist. He's allowed to do that.
Yeah, that this has taken a toll on his mental health.
Oh no, not the guy from Radiohead. What do you mean? Your whole thing is you're sad.
Right. Doesn't that mean you're gonna produce better music if we hurt your mental health?
Yeah, throw more shit at Tom York.
Yeah. But he calls it a social media witch hunt. And he does like the both sides thing. There's some box checking where he says, yes, the Netanyahu government is awful, that usual deal. He says social media witch hunts on either side, pressurizing artists and whoever they feel like that week. This is not a week. This is 20 months. Yeah. To make statements, etc., do very little except heighten the tension, fear, and oversimplification of what are complex problems that merit proper face-to-face debate. Blah, blah, blah. This, to me, feels very Gen X. Like he's kind of just like, I'm not going to, this is what he's saying, is that like, I'm not going to make that statement because people are asking me to. It's just like this kind of diva attitude. Like, how dare you talk to me in a political way? That needs to, like, there's some hypothetical chamber of discourse where that can happen, and maybe someone will say something like, this is a genocide, but it's improper for you to expect me to do that, and you're just part of a trend or a fad, which is just a cop-out.
That's an interesting take on it, that it's a Gen X thing. Because, well, to me, I guess my conception of the generation divide regarding Gen X and millennials is that Gen Xers think they believe in integrity personally, but do not believe in mass politics. And are very cynical about like the world and movements and things like that. And millennials, our problem is that we believe in mass politics. We're the children of boomers, you know? We kind of like had an echo of the new left and stuff, and all joined DSA and shit at one point and had Bernie and stuff. But we do not believe in personal like integrity at all. We're very much about like get the bag. It's very odd to me that millennial socialists love like artists and defend them on the grounds that they should be making money and stuff like that. Like, you know, ooh, Beyonce, I'm so glad she has all this money. It's just been weird. And so to me, the way forward is to synthesize these two things. And you know, we're in some kind of dialectical fucking process generationally. So I'm often yelling at millennials, like, you should have a little Gen X about you. You should think Gen Xly about your personal, like, what a person is and stuff. But Gen Xers in that way can also just use their narrative of the personal, I think, to justify doing whatever they want, because whatever you do, especially when they're fucking successful, it's what you had to do, and actually you're like a hero. It's like on the waterfront, like, no, I'm actually a hero for being so, like, vague about Palestine or whatever.
Yeah. Right. It's the person who is being scorned the most by both sides is automatically the most correct. Yeah, it feels like a Gen X thing because in my experience, they are the most resistant to like talking about, but like asking to, sign a petition or like canvassing. Like, are you go to them with any kind of political, like very low, small ask, and they're just completely horrified that you would even approach them about this. Whereas other generations, even boomers, are a lot more receptive to that. This is just my experience.
It's funny how
Um,
things change when you go further back sometimes.
yeah.
Like, and a lot of, like, I mean, sometimes when I would talk to my grandmother, I'm always surprised that she doesn't have some of these ways of thinking that, like, my parents have. And it, for me, that really, like, it really calls into question this idea that the older you get, the more conservative you get. I think it's like a really flawed way of looking at that. It's also a survivorship bias problem, but it's not true. Some of these things are specific to, like, specific generations' experiences and things like that.
Right.
I am HO, in my humble opinion.
Yeah. Um, well, speaking of other generations, there is a law from generations ago that is being used now to prosecute and deport supporters of Palestine from the United States. I did a little digging into the basically the law. We talked about it a little bit with Keegan Steffen a month or two ago, um, about the uh, McCarran Walter Act, which is the legal basis that Trump is using to, you know, totally try and attack the pro-Palestine movement in America and deport Mahmoud Khalil. But it's a really interesting history that has to do with both anti-communism and immigration. Um, we didn't really have many immigration restrictions. I guess it's not 100% accurate to say it was an open border, but it was pretty close to an open border in America up until 1924. So when people use the kind of like economic arguments, so like too many people coming in, like that's not the reason. I mean, those arguments were brought up, but even conservative economists today will acknowledge that that didn't really do much to help the economy, closing off the border in 1924 under Coolidge.
We're
Um,
so me and Gabe were talking about that because we got to that part in the Mexican Revolution series I'm doing,
y-
and
right.
it's really funny tidbit from that. I mentioned it on that episode, so I'm repeating myself, but the first people that were excluded from immigration were the Chinese because of just like the
Hmm.
railroad labor stuff like that,
Yeah.
and other people weren't, and Mexicans weren't until we're going to get to this. But my family is kind of personally some of the people that started some of this argument that then resulted in a lot of this stuff. But that was obviously a process that was going to happen eventually because of economics and things like that. But so a lot of Chinese workers, in order to continue working on the railroads, used to dress up like Mexicans, which is very funny to me.
Mm. Interesting. Wow. There's a restaurant in Minneapolis. I don't know if it's still there, called Chino Latino. Makes me think of that.
Sounds
Um,
delicious.
yeah. Um, but this law set a quota basically, and disproportionately denied entry to Europeans from the south, from the perimeter of Europe, also to the Japanese, which made the Japanese very angry and inflamed tensions. So this ended up having kind of a blowback effect, or at least contributed to tension between the U.S. and Japan, which had a quote unquote gentleman's agreement with Theodore Roosevelt, where he promised more liberal quotas for Japan. But the agricultural industry really lobbied him to pass a law, or lobbied the government pass restrictions against more Japanese immigrants. And the Japanese viewed this as a humiliation. They called May 26th, when I guess it was signed, as a National Day of Humiliation. Someone committed suicide outside of the American embassy in Tokyo. So yeah, stuff I didn't know about that. This definitely, if we're talking about adverse foreign policy impacts, which the McCarran Walter Act, this other anti-immigration law, really our first sweeping one, that also had adverse foreign policy impacts, or that tangibly did. But flash forward to 1950, there's a couple laws sort of at play here after World War II, at the height of anti-communism, and the height of really McCarthyism, or what's remembered as McCarthyism. But as some would argue, it shouldn't really be called McCarthyism, because there's this other guy from Nevada, a Democratic senator named Pat McCarran, who was way more effective at actually getting his shit passed. Whereas McCarthy, who maybe we'll do some sort of deep dive at on McCarthyism at some point, but this guy was actually effective at getting his laws passed, and wasn't as much of a boob, and wasn't like going on television and just accusing people baselessly of being communists. He was saying all kinds of heinous things, though, including anti-Semitic stuff, and nonetheless remained a senator who was getting bills passed right after the Holocaust. For some reason, that isn't brought up very much, especially in opposition to the Trump administration, which is claiming anti-Semitism as the reason for deporting these people. Well, the guy who wrote this fucking law was an anti-Semite.
God, that's so on the nose. That's like, I don't know why everything has to be so on the nose like this. Did you see the other day when JD Vance was talking about how like the American space program, Americans, we went to the moon, we built the rockets that went to the moon, and it's like, yeah, with the Nazis we took home from, those were Nazis. You're literally praising Nazis, man. It was also a government program like NASA, which he hates. Everything is just like completely schizophrenic. Like everything is the opposite of what it's actually saying it is. It's maddening.
Right. It's Orwellian, if you will. But in 1950, McCarran gets his first big law passed, the Internal Security Act, which requires communist organizations to register with the government. It also has a quote unquote emergency detention provision, which, according to Colorado News Online, says that the president was authorized to arrest and detain people who were disloyal, which is obviously a subjective term. This was enshrined into law. Later, this gets struck down. The detention provision and really most of this law, but it does kind of set the stage for the 1950s and the HUAC hearings and all this nasty stuff. And it really relies on xenophobia, not just Southern and European and Eastern Europeans, but Asians, Jews, Mexicans, and communists. So, earlier this had been mostly sort of a racial animus towards immigrants. But by the 50s, there were definitely, it was brought up when people were quote unquote subversive as a reason to restrict immigration. But by the 50s, this is becoming like, oh, the Soviets, they're going to send over spies and people from these third world countries. They have communist sympathies, and that's more so the reason we have to restrict it.
There's
And
like
McCarran,
there's waves of that because there was also like the the Red Raids and
Mhm.
I mean they deported Emma Goldman.
Yeah,
There's a specific focus on anarchists when they were assassinating presidents and things like that.
right.
But it like ebbs and flows, and I think this is one of the waves, right?
Yeah, and this is right after World War II, where this is kind of necessary for the Cold War to happen in the first place because we've just cooperated with the Soviet Union to defeat the Nazis. There's slightly more warm feelings towards them. There's maybe the possibility of detente, which I still would have been a great thing. But you have to make that go away. You have to make sure that doesn't happen. Where a relationship changes, we become enemies right away, and that involves a lot of this type of stuff and propaganda. And it really helps the liberal Cold Warriors, even Eisenhower, who comes into office after this stuff is passed, to have these wingnuts who are proposing and passing this really extreme stuff so they can come along and be like, whoa, 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 we believe in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. This is totally out of bounds. We are going to do things like execute the Rosenbergs and do all this other, but it makes what they're doing seem less extreme to have people like Pat McCarran and Joseph McCarthy,
Mm.
who Pat McCarran, he was able to prevent the Internal Security Act from even being investigated. Just like the impact the law would have, that wasn't even able to be studied because of him. But as I said, most of that stuff gets struck down. However, in 1952 is the passage of the McCarran Walter Act, which is largely still on the books. And like the other bill, this is something I found interesting. They were both vetoed by Harry Truman. But the veto was overridden because anti-communism was so fervent at that time, particularly among politicians, that they overrode that veto, and it goes to show how weak of a president Harry Truman really was. Taft-Hartley, labor law we're still dealing with today. That got vetoed by Harry Truman, but it didn't matter.
Harry Bridges. Remember him?
Different Harry.
Wait, who am I thinking of? We did an episode about the Taft-Hartley Act.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure we talked about. Yeah. We probably talked about it in the Harry Bridges episode.
I was referring to my my impression of Tim Armstrong, the singer of Rancid, who wrote a song about Harry Bridges. Sorry,
right.
go on.
I wish they could have swapped places. Harry Bridges in Harry Truman's stead.
Oh, there is a Harry Bridges and Tim Armstrong.
That would be interesting too. Singing a song about himself with an Australian accent would be very interesting. But the McCarran Walter Act doesn't change much in terms of the like raw numbers from 1924, but it is like directly involving immigration. But it does kind of change the demographics. There are more immigrants allowed from Great Britain, Ireland, and Germany, and you might say this is like the moment the Irish became white in 1952. Because they had been favored a little bit in 1924 because they were seen as like these are the more acceptable sort of like riffraff we can let in. But by 1952, it's like, yeah, Ireland, that's a lot of the country is already Irish. Let's let them come in and assimilate.
It was all downhill from there.
Yeah, you're not wrong. But it does remove barriers that are to exclude Japanese and Chinese immigrants. So it does ease that a bit, but they still have like quotas that are fairly small. But really, this is about anti-communism. It banned anybody from coming to the United States who has been declared a quote unquote subversive, which is determined by the Justice Department. And, so this includes all sorts of parties and organizations. If you come from a country where you're involved in something, then that's a reason to deny your moving to the United States. As McCarran says at the time, if this oasis of the world, the U.S., should be overrun, perverted, contaminated, or destroyed, then the last flickering light of humanity will be extinguished.
That's a
Which is
little extreme, in my opinion. A little
yeah,
dramatic.
yeah. This is after World War II. We've just cooperated with a bunch of other countries to do something, but we are still the oasis.
There's also there's people everywhere. You could kill every person in America, and the light of humanity would not technically be extinguished.
Yeah, true. But at the time, there were some legal protections against just rounding people up and deporting them. They really weren't enforced very much. And then the McCarran Walter Act comes along and just obliterates all of them. Hubert Humphrey at the time warns that this is going to be the beginning of a police state, and the goons just start sending people out willy-nilly. They round them up in public at workplaces, schools, and start ejecting them. And this leads to, this is the name of the thing, Operation Wetback in 1954.
God,
This is what Trump likes to talk about. I think that's where the I guess it's a slur comes from, if I'm not
yeah,
mistaken.
I've said that a
Yeah.
million times on the show. It's from
Right.
fucking saying people cross the border by swimming through the Rio Grande.
Yeah.
Operation Wetback sounds like a 2000s era, like straight to DVD commentary starring fucking Carlos Mencia. Ned.
We should get AI to make that. But about 1 million people get deported during this thing. And it's, to this day, it's a precedent for Trump's immigration policies. He'll say, well, everybody likes Ike, right? That was the expression. I like Ike. Well, guess what he did? Send 1 million people packing, which was seen as like a crazy extreme proposal 10 years ago now when he announced for president. And now it's just the reality. And people have succumbed to it. Blue states have become Trumpified. New York now. I just learned yesterday that non-citizens can't vote here anymore in municipal elections, which was like a very solid sort of expectation that you can still vote if you live in New York, you have a New York address, doesn't matter your citizenship status. That was like a long established thing. The New York Supreme Court did away with that just a couple months ago, very quietly.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's happening. This immigration, as we've said on the show a million times too, like the very fact that we're talking about it as a quote unquote immigration crisis is a victory for Donald J. Trump.
And it's all thanks to Operation Wetback. I cannot believe it's called that. It's so fucking funny.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm stuck on that, and I'm going to be for quite a while. Keep going.
Well, this act also bars entry for people who have quote unquote moral turpitude, which at the time means that they are gay or that they're alcoholic. If you're both, better watch out.
Only one when I'm the other. All right. Feel me?
You only have a Cosmo when you've had gay sex. I see.
Yeah, exactly. It's that way, not the other way around.
And there's a special ferocity dedicated to poets. This is from an article in Jacobin from South African poet Dennis Brutus to Pablo Neruda to Palestinian poet Mahmoud Darwish, Gabriel Garcia Marquez. He was banned from the U.S. because he, under this law, was determined to be a communist, and this is even after he's gotten the Nobel Prize.
He was a friend of Fidel, so I mean,
Yeah,
accurate, but also you shouldn't. He's good. You should not be deporting him because he's a
right.
communist.
Right. And there's, other people as well who aren't big names. Robert Galvan, who came over when he was 7 from Mexico in 1918. He's married to an American citizen, so via that he should have citizenship and a right to be here. Um, and that's the sort of thing that, like, people are saying, oh, Trump is trying to attack this standard that, you marry a citizen, you get citizenship. This is like a new precedent. It turns out it's not. They did this in the 50s. This guy had 4 kids, worked at a seafood plant, and he had been a member of the Communist Party briefly when World War II was happening, and when that was like there was a popular front. And because of that, he gets deported, even though he's been in the US since he's 7 years old.
Okay, this is connecting some interesting dots for me, and this is very interesting to echo back to this fucking wave of whatever this is back then, because like I was just saying about Gabriel Garcia Marquez, it's interesting, when you have laws like this, there's kind of a two-pronged discourse about it. One of them is, hey, don't deport him, he's not a communist, right? And then the other one is, don't deport communists. And I think
Right.
it's kind of like we should sit with that for a minute, because like you're saying, in this era, the United States just worked with the Soviet Union to end World War II. So the argument should start with that, honestly, is like,
Yeah.
why would you make a law based on this ideology that is like on the basis that it's bad when it has demonstrably helped like improve the world?
Right.
Then the second thing is, people also shouldn't be like wrongfully accused of crimes that they haven't committed, because that's also just like terrifying from a fucking standpoint of misuse of state power and things like that. But that's been echoed with the discourse about CCOT in El Salvador, because people are getting deported, and some of the arguments about the deportations are that person's not an MS-13, and it's kind of maddening because even if they were, you shouldn't be fucking deporting them. Like, being in a gang is not actually that should not be a crime. Gangs are just social organizations. You don't deport people that are in the Hell's Angels and shit like that. There's plenty of social organizations that have existed in history, and El Salvador, for that matter, I think we also talked about this in the Mexico episode. It's from fucking America. It's from like El Salvadorian immigrants who came here because of the meddling of the United States and lived in a fucking tumultuous time and place in Los Angeles. And all this happened in the wake of the state destroying effectively the Black Panther Party, which was a social organization that helped people in poor, marginalized Black and brown neighborhoods. So have the whole conversation,
Yeah. Shout out to Mount Pleasant in DC, where there's a ton of Salvadorans as well. But
Cool.
something to take away from this thing is the Communist Party, being in a Communist Party, is now still grounds for deportation. So this law is still on the books, and they can use it against people who come here and just are in CPUSA. I don't know if they have to have the word communist in the name in order
You
for
can
it to.
deport them. It's okay.
Well, I wonder if it'll be a
Just a
thing.
little factional humor there. That's
Yeah.
all.
Well, it'd be funny if that turned into a thing where somebody's like, "No, well, I am a communist," and they're like, "Well, this says you're part of Democratic Socialists of America." Well, yeah, but I am a communist myself. Oh, well, are you though? Because this seems like kind of a bourgeois reformist party.
And they're
I'm
like,
actually not going to deport you.
yeah, let him through. They're fine. And the guy's like, no, come on, deport me.
Yeah.
We're serious, We're like doing
Right.
stuff. It's Big Tent, all right?
Yeah. But yeah, this is where the term adverse foreign policy consequences comes from. That is what was used to deport Mahmoud Khalil. So it's still on the books. There has been really no effort to like overhaul this set of authorities. It's just one of those things. It's like, oh yeah, that's an old law. We're not going to really use that anymore. And that's something that is important to ask people to do and make a priority is like go through these laws when there isn't a Trump in the White House and see which ones should be done away. Because just because there no one has enforced the law saying that you can't cross the Minnesota-Wisconsin border with ice cream in your pocket, um, doesn't mean that like somebody won't enforce it in the future for repressive purposes. These things should be brought to the fore. Um, but real quick, anecdote. This is a scene from Pat McCarran's biography. It takes place. It's a scene of him in Nevada and the way he used to run things. It says the manager of Harold's Club in Reno marched 600 employees, pit bosses, showgirls, janitors, behind a brass band down Virginia Street, across the bridge over the Truckee and up the Washoe County Courthouse steps to sign non-communist loyalty oaths. Down the block at Brodsky's Saloon, the owner also handed out loyalty forms to his employees. Either sign or get out, he barked, which just kind of gives you a sense of the attitude in the country around this time, which had to be really driven into people. But once this was extremely pervasive. Just declaring yourself not a communist, as I've said on the show before. My grandfather, unfortunately, wrote letters to the editor here in New York for the Daily News, asking for laws that would help him identify communists as a police officer and arrest them. So this was very common, not just being against communism, but wanting some kind of like legal apparatus and structure to persecute them, which in theory, that's supposed to go against what the Constitution's about, right? The Bill of Rights. There was a debate between I believe it was Thomas Dewey and Harold Stassen when they were both running for the Republican nomination for president. The entire debate was dedicated solely to the question of should the Communist Party be banned. So this sort of thing, which I ultimately I don't know if they could get away with that, but they basically did it in practice. So is Trump a fascist? I think probably. And there are elements of this that are like new and we should be alarmed by and activate liberals in fighting against, but very little of this is unprecedented. And there's a long history of this stuff. And the Constitution stuff, the Bill of Rights, that's kind of pushed by the wayside when people have their enemy, when the people in power want to persecute a political enemy, someone they view as a threat to the U.S., they will totally abandon that stuff.
You might say it never really existed to begin with, right? It's always kind of just a product of faith on some level. Thinking about some I did an episode about this guy Carl Schmitt, the Nazi, had a lot to say about that and used that concept to justify creating Nazi Germany. That there was always a sovereign. This is very interesting. I've got a lightning round of topical things I want to get through before we get finished here. It'll be real quick, but I had some scratch pad going and I thought some things might be interesting to bring up on the show. Bill Burr is sharing Michael Parenti clips on Instagram. He is a communist and is going to be deported back to Ireland, I guess now. Not really sure what's going on. I have complex thoughts about artists and stuff like that. I think that they're very often easily Radiohead, so I don't think that we should get too excited about this because comedians sometimes say really base shit and then turn around and say the exact opposite. And if you pay attention to Bill Burr's, like if you watch the entire specials, they're kind of like that. He's kind of doing it on purpose. But that being said, still very impressive. And maybe I'm being a little cynical. Maybe it's fucking cool. Maybe he's gonna be a George Carlin type or something. I think it's probably because if I had to take a guess, being a comedy insider, having a little inside information here, he runs a company with like fucking The Dollop with Dave Anthony, like a podcast studio and stuff, and that's an excellent leftist socialist podcast. So maybe he's learned a thing or two. I don't know. Anyways, Bill Burr, welcome to the Resistance. As long as we're on the topic of borders, I wanted to talk about Mexico a little bit. I've been learning a lot about the Morena Party, and something that's really impressive about it is that so the way corruption works in Mexican politics is, a lot of it is, it's like a little bit of like a kleptocratic kind of situation. A lot of it is, it's politicians working with the United States. And something I didn't really understand until I looked into this a little bit more, like really started to learn about it. And I'll probably talk about this on the Mexico episodes more in depth. But like the United States is always saber rattling and talking about the cartels as if like we hate them. And the cartels worked a lot with the PRI, which Morena overcame, and also vis-a-vis worked with the United States by all being in bed together. So the decorruption thing is, it's fighting neoliberalism by severing the United States' like ties and control over the state via all this corruption. And something that they're doing right now that's huge is basically like the Supreme Court there it was appointed, it wasn't democratic. So Scheinbaum is changed it to where you're going to have to vote for Supreme Court justices. And this is also just, I don't know. I've been reading Chomsky lately, and so it's kind of popping for that reason. It's hitting real hard. But if you want to understand who benefits, cui bono, right, in this situation, look at media that the United States is writing about this.
Yeah. I just saw CNN today. I turned it on. Fareed Zakaria was saying, this shouldn't be a popularity contest. The democracy should not be a popularity contest. It was, I believe, the wording he used, which is just so unself-aware. Yeah, it should be. That's kind of the whole thing.
Everything is too on the nose. It's crazy. We're in Verhoeven world. Democracy is a popular, like literally what it is, right? But so the rhetoric that's being used to describe it as anti-democratic, this is the fucking United States corporate media being angered by the loss of control they're going to have over the fucking Mexican state and all of the economic extraction that we do from Mexico. So it's a huge win on their part. And I just think it's very interesting because like something that you won't notice if you don't speak Spanish is that like a lot of media about stuff like this is targeted at Mexican Americans to try to flip them, and so like when AMLO ran the first time, there was a lot of that stuff that we just totally missed up here because it was going on fucking Univision and shit like that, and like media that we don't consume. And it felt like a story in the background, but there was a vested interest in fighting against the Morena Party. So I don't know. I'm kind of juiced. I'm kind of excited about Scheinbaum and what she's doing, and I'm going to keep a close eye on it. A couple other things. Our left party sucks. The Democrats are horrible. They're not the left party. They're just the center right. We all know these things. Sorry for anyone who's new to the show. Nothing is real. Sorry, the government is bad. Everything yada yada yada. Here's what I'm getting at. They have this woman named Olivia Juliana.
Oh boy,
she is horrible.
Brave man going into this. Okay.
I don't even know much about her. She's just one of those like people that they hire to like to be a pundit and stuff and to represent the DNC. And apparently she was the secret weapon they were going to use on some kind of live stream in their effort to recruit more male voters. And I'm not going to fucking go after any obvious points here. I'm not going to, listen, I've grown, okay? She sucks for political reasons. She's obviously a fucking DNC shill. She's obviously a shill for the ruling class. They think we're stupid. They think that, they can use people like this to scold us into supporting our fucking managers, right? But the idea that she would be the way to get like these disaffected Joe Rogan males is just, I mean, it's so like blind and misguided because they hate people like her more than anyone and for wrong reasons too. Like, but apparently she was supposed to do some stream and it like got canceled because I guess that everyone was making fun of this too much. And it's just very funny to me. I think it's interesting because the the political science-esque approach to just trying to recruit a demographic of young male voters by like playing video games and stuff and like riding a skateboard is so out of touch. It's so insulting. It's frankly, it's insulting because I know that they know this is stupid, and that it's clearly they just think we're stupid. But it's really dark because it betrays a lack of like material understanding of why anything happens. Like, the fact that people vote for Donald Trump or don't vote for the Democrats or vote for Bernie or things like that, these aren't because we're stupid high school students who just hear about like a trend and then we're like, yo, have you heard about the Democrats, man? I'm down with them. It's because of fucking money and stuff. And like, it's because, people have interests and they decide whether or not they believe a politician that comes along and says they're going to actually try to fucking do something about this. Every once in a while, you do believe in something, Bernie kind of looked like a thing for a minute. AMLO,
right, which was not because he was playing video games with young people. Like, totally missing the appeal of those who have been popular among like young men.
Yeah, and it's like, he might have become popular among like people like the Rogan world. He went on Rogan and stuff, but that's like the entire logic here is backwards. That happened because he was a phenomenon, because people might be stupid, but they're not blind. Like, they can tell when they're being robbed, and he seemed legitimate, and it's very basic. He fucking explained very basically just stuff about PAC money and stuff like that. Everyone knows politicians are corrupt. No one's fucking stupid. And every once in a while, there's a good reason to fucking support a thing. I get really fucking sour on politics. I get pretty cynical about it. But now I'm thinking about the Morena Party and Scheinbaum and AMLO, and like, they fucking did it. It can be done. That happened via politics. So, you look at that and you go, well, why the fuck did all these people vote for AMLO? It's not because he was breakdancing and shit, man. It's because people were like aware. He did things that made it very clear that he was going against the fucking corruption that was making people's lives worse as workers in Mexico. Soapbox over, right? I want to talk about Gaza a little bit because I had a viral tweet about Greta Thunberg. I think it's interesting that I'm getting just completely fucking bombed by tweets from Zionists, like the real bad ones. They're like really, really racist accounts. It's a shit show on there. And it's because I made a point about Greta Thunberg. I found some really horrible racist Zionist account that dared to ask the question, like, why does she care about Gaza? Because she's a climate person. And what I posited is that she seems like a smart person. She seems like she maybe started off on whatever journey she's on by looking into what is wrong with the environment and learning about it. And if you do that correctly, you will learn the cause of the impending climate disaster that is, increasingly getting worse. The very recent, like, dramatic increase in temperature and things like that is clearly a byproduct of capitalism and the concept of unending growth and things like that. So she came to that conclusion. And if you come to that conclusion, that's called consciousness. Then you start to see capitalism as a superstructure that does in fact affect everything, because it's a superstructure. It's a global thing. It affects every human being on the fucking planet and affects all parts of our day. I don't imagine myself, I'm free of it. I have to go to work at some point. I have to do things for money, right? This is capitalism, right? So, I don't know. The tweet went mostly viral. I'm tending to fixate on reply guys and hate, and which is weird because it's like 200 something thousand likes, and then like 1,000 people are just tweeting racist shit at me or whatever. But I don't know. I think it's kind of interesting. It's been kind of fascinating to see how many people either truly believe or are pretending to not understand that those two things, the climate and war and funding of genocides and international politics, are clearly related because they're part of the same system. It didn't even occur to me that this would be that obvious, or that this wouldn't be obvious, and then I'd have to explain it, until I got a ton of people going, "What the fuck is conspiracy theory is this guy talking about?" So thought I'd riff on it a little bit on the show, just flesh out some ideas here. That's all. Everything is, connected rhizomatically, and yeah, I don't know. I think that where Greta Thunberg is coming from, being a climate activist and talking about this, it's kind of illuminating. So maybe I'll read about that a little bit more. She, it's not just like, oh, war is hot and it's causing the air to get hotter there. It's the economic parts, the unending growth. That's the root cause of two outcomes, right? We all get that? Okay. Glenn Greenwald, not going to touch that yet. Some thoughts. Revenge porn is bad, and when no matter who it happens to. Last thing I want to say, just want to talk about Elon one more time. I'm not going to tell you how I know this, but I know this from someone close to the source. I'm not just doing the thing everyone does online all day, where we all like to imagine, I bet he's bad at sex. Small dick. I heard it from someone close to the source. All right.
Wow.
Gas.
I've even heard it's like injured in some way. He had a surgery gone wrong.
Well, see, that's the thing is, I know everyone's like, I feel like that, like, I've heard that too, and a lot of people say it, because it's like, you hear that and you go, I don't know whether that's true, but I'm definitely going to repeat it, because nothing bad. I want him to at least suffer from hearing that there's a rumor of that. And you kind of want to believe it, and it's like fun. And sure, whatever. It doesn't matter whether it's true or not. That one, I don't actually legitimately, I'm like, I could see this just being a fucking rumor that we all just say.
But that's when you were friends with Ashley St. Clair and she told you?
It's yeah, I was hanging out with her and Claire Boucher.
Okay.
Whose the stage name is Grimace. You might have heard of her. It's Grimace's birthday. Anyway, he has a small dick. Okay, that's it. I think I'm done doing a rapid news thing. Thank you for this illuminating historical journey we went on. Yeah, I think that's all I've got. Let's do plugs. I have a million podcasts. I started a podcast called The Preacher and the Slave with Justin from Library Punks. We're watching Preacher. It's a show I've always wanted to watch, so I'm making content about it. It's as simple as that. I don't know why you mad might be back someday. I am going to be bartending in a gimp mask at my friend Venus's insane art show that she's doing here in Los Angeles. I'll put a link up to it. It's like a weird alternative fucked up Nine Inch Nails video-esque thing. If that sounds like something you'd like to check out and see some cool art and order a cocktail from me, that I think I knocked this shit out of the park. I'm making some very cool shit for this fucking show. It's kind of art itself in a way, if you think about it. Come on out. That's on June 13th. So it's in a couple weeks. And I'm at Feral Jokes and everything. Okay, thanks. That's it.
I am Matt Anders Lee here on social media. Vanquished is the other podcast. And if you're in New York City, come on out to Paid Protest on Friday, June 6th. We're raising money for the NYCDSA Trans Rights Working Group. Got a lot of good, funny comics on the show. I'll put the ticket link in the description.
It's Operation Finished. I couldn't say it.